Hello and welcome to the Authority of Love on this another Family Foundation Friday. I'm your host Greg Williams with co-host David Walls. And remember, at Love and Lordship, our vision is every life and relationship built on the love and lordship of Jesus Christ. David, welcome and welcome to our listeners.
It's good to be with you on another Friday.
It sure is. It's a wonderful, and I'm thinking we're actually moving, even though yesterday was a little crazy, we're moving more towards spring every day. That's a good thing. We always love that.
Yes.
Unless you have high allergies, but other than that, people mostly love it. Any updates with you, man?
And it's there's just a lot going on. So this time next week will be the last day before the veto period starts, which is crazy
and crucial, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it's important next week for sure.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to cover a lot today because we need more prayers. We need continued action. Thank you all for doing that. We'll give you ways to do that. But before we do that, I mentioned this last week. Just before we went on air, actually, my grandson was born.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, Bennett Tipton Williams. Great name. There's a lot of history of different ways there, and the parents went through all that, but it was great. And 7 pounds, 8 ounces, 19 and a quarter inches long, so healthy. Their mom and baby are doing good. Dad's doing good. Papa's doing good. Mom's, or Mimi, that's what my wife likes to go by. Mimi's doing good, so we're excited. And just wanted to share that with our listeners. Thanks for those who have listened to that and been praying. Everything went well. You know, it's birth. There's always something, but it went well. So, with that said, we're going to jump into this, David. I know we've got some pretty strong things coming out of D.C. again that are positive. So, update us on that.
Yeah, have some important stuff that we're going to get into, obviously at the state level. But I feel like we kind of just need to talk a little bit about, President Trump gave a address to a joint session of Congress earlier this week, and apparently it was the longest speech that's ever been given to a joint session of Congress, over 100 minutes.
I'm sure the Democrats love that.
We are not here to recap the entirety of that, just to bring attention and to continue to be thankful for the way in which President Trump is combating one of the biggest lies of our day and age, which is, as he said, forcefully fighting against the, quote, big lie of transgender ideology, which he actually, I believe, said that was a form of child abuse, which
we've said many times
absolutely.
on here.
We fundamentally believe. I know one of the things that President Trump said has gotten a lot of attention, where he spoke to the children of America and said that you are perfectly the way that God has made you. And I know what he means by that. This idea, this lie that's being perpetrated in our culture and really focused on children, this lie that somehow you can be born in the wrong body, and that even further than that somehow through medical interventions or drugs that you can change your biology and become the opposite sex is a lie. We know that. We believe it's a lie from,
pits of hell.
The pits of hell.
Yeah, exactly.
I just continue to be thankful that President Trump is speaking out boldly against this, because look, sometimes I know the Family Foundations, some folks on our side get accused of well, why are you talking about these things? Well, there's nothing more foundational than the reality that we were created in the image of God as male and female. And if a culture has that wrong, you really can't get much else right.
No, that's exactly right.
That is, at the core of the foundation of who we are. And so again, President Trump highlighted some ways in which some of his executive orders are fighting back. We've gone through all those, some of the notable ones, Greg. We won't rehash all that, but just continue to be thankful for the message. And then that message obviously is resonating through states like Kentucky and other states that have already taken bold action to save women's sports, to protect kids from gender ideology. But the other thing we'll just mention, and it's kind of mind-boggling, but for the first time, a federal Save Women's Sports Act to protect female sports from men who identify as women. It's passed the U.S. House of Representatives before. For the first time, it got a vote in the U.S. Senate this week. Unfortunately, it did not move forward because they had to get to 60 votes. It got, I think the vote was 51 to 45, and it was a completely party line vote. So that means that every single Democratic senator voted against
Yeah.
a simple bill to protect female sports. Now, you would think after the most recent election, in light
Every
of
one of them
everything,
that voted, because somewhere there was 4 people that didn't vote.
Right.
There. So, but every
Yeah.
one of them that voted against that.
right, against that.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, I'm kind of flabbergasted. In the House of Representatives, Greg, there were at least a few Democrats
yeah.
that voted for this common sense
Yeah.
bill. I just bring that up as a contrast to say, thankful for that we have a president and administration now that's proclaiming, a truthful message on that front
Right.
now. But
Right.
we still have a battle ahead of us, and
Yeah.
it's in the political realm, we're still seeing division on what should be a very straightforward issue.
Yeah. And I would add this, David. This is just a side note commentary, but if you don't believe in God, then you either create God or you act like God.
Yeah.
And so when you say you were born, that's all a product of nature,
Yeah.
evolution, so to speak.
Yeah.
And since there is no God, we can help you become whatever you want to be.
Right.
I mean, that's literally what happens.
Yeah.
And people don't even understand the depth of that, but they've sold out to it.
Yeah.
As evidenced
And
by that vote.
Yeah, and as we know, Greg, that's ultimately idolatry of the highest order.
Humanism
Yeah.
at the highest level.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And along those lines, another thing that President Trump, and again, you and I have talked about this, especially me. I don't agree with him on everything, but the things I've seen him do in his first term, he's a man of his word when it comes to policy, and he is doing the things like another one he did, pro-life. He defunded the United Nations FPA, which is the fund for population control, which supported China's one-child ban, only one child. All the other children are aborted. They support all that. It's been funded back through Biden,
Yeah.
and so they defunded that. Another strong on the global level, strong stand for life.
Yeah, well, and we're continuing to see, and the ripple effects of this USAID debacle
Oh, yes.
and how that's been
Yeah.
exposed. And I was just seeing how what's coming to light with the amount of money that we were spending to promote the LGBT agenda
Yeah.
in different parts of the country. I don't think most
Under the
Americans,
guise of helping the poor.
right? I don't think
Yeah.
most Americans are on board with this type of spending, and so good on these efforts to continue to bring that to light, because we've got to rein in this out of control spending on things.
And
that
they're
are-
finding it more
Yeah.
and more. At every peel of the onion,
Yeah.
they're finding more and more
Yeah.
of it. So that's good. Well, let's get down to Kentucky. We need to do a recap of some of these things so that our listeners will know what to be praying for and how they can take action, David. So let's start with this one, something you talked about recently, HB4 by Representative Decker.
Yeah, so this week, two of the important bills that we were following that have passed is the House House Bill 4. This is a bill to ban and defund discriminatory DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion programs at our public universities. This was a big issue last legislative session. Representative Decker has been a champion on this issue, had a bill last session that didn't quite get across the finish line in the Senate last session, and so thankful that she's brought that back. The House has now moved this bill, and I think the expectation is that this should be the year to ban and defund these discriminatory programs. She did a phenomenal job again. Laying it out on the floor, taking hostile questions,
Right.
and honestly, Greg, and this has been true on other issues. Some of the arguments that the radical left is throwing at, whether it's these DEI, or we've seen attacks on some of the bills to support religious liberty.
Mm-hmm.
The tired arguments, they're just kind of thankfully falling on deaf ears now.
Yeah.
A
A lot's been exposed.
a lot
That
has
makes it
been
different.
exposed.
Yeah.
So another important bill, House Bill 495 by Representative David Hale. That bill now is very simple. It rescinds Governor Beshear's illegal so-called conversion
Blatantly.
therapy ban
Blatantly, right.
that is really just an effort to target any counseling on sexuality issues that might come from a biblical perspective. So a bill to rescind that, do away with that illegal executive order, passed the House this week, actually on the same day that the House Bill 4 passed.
Okay.
So thankful for that. That bill now has to move through the Senate.
Right. And that's where, when you hear these, remember, it's got to get through both.
It's got to get through
In
both.
almost every case.
Right.
So we need to continue prayer and action. We're going to let you know what that means
Right.
in a minute.
And again, I know I alluded to this at the beginning, but this is the short session. Next week, next Friday, begins the governor's veto period. Right. So, and then there'll be 2 final legislative days after that.
5 days.
So some of these bills that we would anticipate that Governor Beshear would veto, that essentially means they have to pass by Friday. Otherwise, if the governor was to veto the bill, there would not be an opportunity at the very end of the session for the legislature to override those vetoes. So that's why the next 6 legislative days, 5 legislative days are just critically important to pray and engage.
Run down a few of the other ones that we have been talking about.
We've talked a lot about Senate Bill 60. That's the bill to strengthen Kentucky's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That bill has already passed the Senate. It's kind of sitting right now on the House side, and we need House leadership to move that bill forward. Yeah. The 10 Commandments Restoration Resolution, HJR 15 by our friend Representative Shane Baker, that bill had already passed the House. It has been moved to a committee in the Senate, but that bill has to pass the Senate before Friday. Yeah. Hopefully, perhaps even as we're recording today, House Bill 208 will get a vote on the House floor. That is the important bill that would regulate ban cell phones during instructional time in our public schools. So continue to pray and engage on that issue. And then we've got a number of pro-life bills that we're continuing to advocate on. Yeah. The Baby Olivia Act is one that we've talked about that would simply just require schools to show an instructional video to teach the truth of human development in the womb. Yep. There's some other pro-life bills. All of these bills, we have updated where they are in the process. Right. We have new messaging to send to your representative or senators on these bills. Even if you've already sent a message before, the bill may be in a different chamber than when you first sent it. Right. Go to our website, and even if you've taken action on one of these bills before, send another message. This is the most critical, really, 5 days of the session next week.
Yeah. And by the way, the way you do that, you can do it a couple of ways. If you're familiar with it, just call the Kentucky Legislative Message Line. That's 800-372-7181. That's 800-372-7181. And the person on the line, they do a fabulous job of guiding you through, making sure it gets to your senator or representative and to any leadership that you want to copy it to. That's all you got to say. Yeah. The other thing is, and this is where you really want to get you involved, is go to KentuckyFamily.org. I get your all's updates. Yeah. I just did it the other day, went down through there and followed through on every one of them. We'll do it again. You can do the same thing. Literally, you had 8 or 10 updates up there. Yeah. And I did it in about 5 minutes. Yeah. And it was once you did the first one, it plugs you in on the rest of them. Very well done, user-friendly. So please take the time to pray about these. But every one of these that we're giving you, we talk about it, but if you want to talk more, we'll do that, about the biblical foundations and reasons why it's not just common sense, it's biblical sense.
Absolutely.
And that's why we do that. So any closing comments, David, before we close out today?
No, I just, the other thing is pray. We are, we're commanded in Scripture to be in prayer for our elected leaders, governmental leaders, and certainly as the session gets closer to the end, the tension heats up, the everything heats up. So be in prayer.
Your voice is heard, and we need the prayer more than anything. Yeah. Final thought is this. Monday, the 10th, this coming Monday, is the deadline for the cruise, the Family and Friends Cruise, June the 8th through the 14th, that I'll be sharing on and teaching on. Contact me at loveandlordship@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. I'm Greg Williams with David Walls, and you're listening to Family Foundation Friday on the Authority of Love.